My mom kicked me out of my own bedroom so her stepson could turn it into an art studio. I told my dad, who still paid child support. What he did next turned a family argument into a full-blown war that nobody saw coming. Hello Reddit I plus here. I, 16F, honestly never imagined that my own mother would choose someone else's comfort over mine. I keep wondering if I'm overreacting, but everyone around me is acting like I started World War III just because I told my dad what happened. For some background, my parents divorced when I was 6. There wasn't some dramatic affair or huge custody battle. They simply admitted they made better friends than spouses and agreed to separate before things became ugly. My dad, Simon, 43, owns a commercial construction company that keeps him traveling most of the year. Because of that, they agreed I would primarily live with my mom, Rachel, 41, while dad paid generous child support and covered almost everything else. My school tuition, clothes, sports, phone, vacations, even my college savings. He never missed a payment, and he always made time for me whenever he came home. When I was around 13, I finally asked why they couldn't get back together. Mom sat me down and explained everything honestly. She said sometimes love isn't enough, and forcing two unhappy people to stay together usually hurts everyone more. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but I respected her for telling me the truth. For years, everything stayed peaceful. Then she met Victor. Victor, 45, is actually a decent guy. He's polite, never tried replacing my dad, and always respected my boundaries. I genuinely don't dislike him. His son, Mason, 17, however, is another story. His mother passed away several years ago, and ever since then, he'd become emotionally closed off. He transferred to my high school last fall. We basically pretended the other didn't exist. I tried talking to him a few times, he'd nod, walk away, conversation over. He wasn't rude exactly, just cold. Not only toward me, toward my mom too. She kept trying to win him over with homemade dinners, birthday gifts, asking about school, buying his favorite snacks after secretly asking Victor what he liked. Nothing worked. He barely acknowledged her existence. Honestly, it hurt watching. She was trying so hard to become someone important in his life while slowly forgetting I was supposed to come first. I didn't realize how bad things had become until one Sunday dinner. Victor announced they were finally ready to move into our house. Mom was thrilled. Then Mason spoke. I don't think I can move. Everyone looked confused. He explained that he was applying to prestigious art schools. Painting wasn't just a hobby, it was his future. Their garage had been converted into an art studio where he worked almost every day. Our house had no extra studio. Without missing a beat, my mother smiled and said, "That's easy." Everyone looked at her. Mason can just use Olivia's room. Silence, then she added, "She'll understand." Understand? She hadn't even looked at me. She hadn't asked. She'd already volunteered my bedroom like it belonged to someone else. I stared at her. "Excuse me?" She smiled that fake calming smile parents use when they expect obedience. "You can sleep somewhere else for a while." I laughed because I genuinely thought she was joking. She wasn't. Victor looked uncomfortable. Even Mason looked surprised. I asked where exactly I was supposed to sleep. "Oh, we'll figure something out." Figure something out? For me? The person who actually lived there? I looked directly at Mason. "So you get a bedroom, and my bedroom becomes your private studio?" He immediately shook his head. "I never asked for that." Before he could say anything else, Mom interrupted. "Don't make this difficult." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Difficult? You're literally kicking me out of my own room. She told me we'd discuss it later. Translation. Decision made, conversation over. The next morning, she cornered me before school. She already had a plan. Apparently, her tiny home office, barely large enough for a desk and filing cabinet, would become my temporary bedroom. She'd squeeze a single bed against one wall. I'd have to clear it every weekday morning because she still needed the room to work remotely. My clothes, they'd go into plastic storage bins. My bookshelf, into the garage, my gaming setup, no room. My privacy, gone. She actually smiled while explaining all this. It'll only be 9 months. 9 months, nearly an entire school year. She expected me to live like I was camping inside my own house because someone else needed an art studio. I asked one question. What happens if I say no? Her answer still makes my blood boil. This isn't really your decision. Those words echoed in my head all day. So after school, I called my dad. I wasn't trying to start drama. I honestly just needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy. He listened without interrupting. Then he asked one question. Is your room still yours right now? Technically? Don't move a single thing. That was all he said. The next afternoon, 3 moving trucks pulled into our driveway. Not for me, for my dad. He arrived with his attorney, his accountant, and 2 employees. Mom nearly fainted. Apparently, the child support agreement specifically stated that she was required to provide me with my own private bedroom and suitable living accommodations. If she voluntarily removed my bedroom, she would be violating the custody agreement. Dad's attorney calmly explained that if my living conditions changed without agreement, Dad would immediately petition the court for primary custody. Then came the bombshell. Since Dad had been paying child support based on me living there full time, if I moved in with him instead, the child support payments would stop immediately, not decrease. Stop. Mom turned white. She'd been relying on that money for years. Victor looked absolutely stunned. Then Dad dropped another surprise. He'd already rented a furnished apartment 5 minutes from my school. It had 2 bedrooms, one just for me. He looked at me and simply asked, "Would you rather live with me?" I said yes before anyone else could speak. Mom exploded. She accused Dad of manipulating me. Dad calmly replied, "No, you volunteered our daughter's bedroom before asking whether she wanted to keep living here." Victor finally spoke. To my complete shock, he agreed with my dad. He admitted he'd never approved taking my room. In fact, Mason had already told him privately that he wasn't comfortable with it. Everyone slowly turned toward Mason. He looked miserable. Then he quietly admitted, "I don't even paint in bedrooms. I need garage ventilation because I use oils and spray finishes." The room wouldn't have worked anyway. Mom had sacrificed my bedroom. For absolutely nothing. I expected she'd apologize. Instead, she blamed everyone except herself. She said Dad was trying to ruin her financially. Dad responded by filing for emergency custody the following week. Things became even uglier after that. Mom started telling relatives that Dad had stolen me. Suddenly, my phone exploded with messages. Grandparents, aunts, cousins, everyone telling me I needed to go home. Everyone saying families make sacrifices. Not one of them had actually asked what happened. Dad finally got tired of it. He sent every single relative copies of the custody agreement along with screenshots of Mom admitting she'd planned to remove my bedroom. Within 48 hours, half the family stopped talking to her. Apparently, the story she'd told everyone was very different from reality. Victor delayed moving into the house, then canceled it altogether. A month later, he ended the relationship. His reason? If she could treat her own daughter like that, he couldn't trust how she'd treat his son. The breakup devastated Mom. She lost the relationship, she lost the child support, she lost primary custody, and eventually, she sold the house because she couldn't afford it anymore. I moved into Dad's apartment permanently. For months afterward, I couldn't sleep without feeling guilty. Every time Mom cried on the phone, I wondered if I'd destroyed her life. Finally, my dad said something that changed everything. "You didn't ruin her life. She gambled yours because she thought you'd stay quiet." That sentence hit me harder than anything. A few weeks ago, Mom asked if we could meet for coffee. She looked exhausted, older, smaller somehow. For the first time, she apologized, not the fake kind, a real apology. She admitted she'd become so desperate to prove she could build the perfect blended family that she'd forgotten the family she already had. She said she'd spent months trying to earn the love of someone who never asked for it, while taking mine for granted because she assumed it would always be there. I cried. She cried. Neither of us magically fixed everything. Trust doesn't come back overnight, but it's a start. Now, I split holidays between both parents. Things are civil again, better, even. As for Mason, he actually got accepted into one of the best art schools in the state. We still don't text, we still aren't close. But when we ran into each other at graduation, he stopped me. "I never wanted your room," he said. "I know." Then he smiled for the first time I'd ever seen. "So, are we finally allowed to acknowledge each other in public?" I laughed. "I think we've earned that." So, AITA for telling my dad after my mom tried giving away my bedroom? Because apparently, one phone call was enough to blow up 3 relationships, a custody agreement, and an entire family.